Hi, welcome to Unit 9.4b, Spreadsheet Processing using Microsoft Excel 2010. This free course is brought to you by Might Publishing. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to 1. Explain the meaning of spreadsheet and the purpose of a spreadsheet application. 2. You should be able to launch or start a spreadsheet application on your computer. 3. You should be able to enter and format data in a spreadsheet application. 4. Using inbuilt formula, find the sum of values in a given list. 5. You should be able, using inbuilt formula, to find the largest number out of a given list of values. 6. You should be able, using inbuilt formula, to find the largest number out of a given list of values. 7. You should be able to find the number of numerical values in a supplied set of cells or values. 8. Using inbuilt formula, you should be able to test a user-defined condition and be able to return one result if the condition is true and another result if the condition is false. Finally, you should be able to convert tabulated data into graph form. This could be a pie chart, column chart, and so on. A spreadsheet is simply an electronic document which consists of rows and columns where data can be entered and manipulated. Now, where the rows and columns intersect, boxes are formed. We call these boxes cells, and it is where data units, this could be words or numbers, where they are typed. The grid of rows and columns enable computer users to know the location of data items. So, they give an address to data items which were entered into the spreadsheet. The grid of rows and columns also enable users to perform calculations on data based on their cell addresses. Now, what spreadsheet application is on your computer? Like I said, in this lesson we use Microsoft Excel 2010. But in case you have a higher or more recent version, that should not be a worry because the formulas we're going to be using are basically the same. And I would say there is no need for you to retrain each time Microsoft releases a new version of Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office products often have intuitive interfaces, and so when you upgrade to a higher version of a particular application, you just simply have to acquaint yourself in the new environment or new interface that you'll be using. So let's launch Microsoft Excel 2010 and get started. The operating system I'm using here is Windows 7, so normally I would go to the Start button and locate Microsoft Excel 2010 here, or if I would not have seen it here, I would have simply searched for it here in the search space, or go to All Programs and try to search for it from here. There's Microsoft Office there, and then you can pick on a program that you are looking for. And normally what happens if you keep using a particular application, you are going to start seeing it here. So as you can see, there's Microsoft Excel 2010 showing on this list, and because I frequently use it. So let's get started and acquaint ourselves with the Excel 2010 interface. Now, as you can see, the spreadsheet is made up of columns and rows. Columns are denoted by alphabetical characters. Here you have A, B, C, D, and so on. Then across here you have rows, which are denoted by these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now where columns intersect with rows, a cell is formed. And so because of this intersection, we have a way to refer to cells. For example, this active one, and you identify an active cell by its thick border as it is here. So this particular cell which is active is referred to as B2. B, the name of the column, 2, the name of the row. And as you may notice, on top across here there is B2. So this space here actually shows you the current active cell. And whatever you type inside these cells will be appearing in the formula bar. So this space here is actually known as a formula bar. Now we may want to format the data items that we enter into these cells so that they look in bold, italics, or they are underlined. To do that, you simply go to the Home tab and locate the font group and use one of these tools, bold, italics, or underline. And of course, before you do that, you need to click on the item that you want to format. So for example, I may have a list of items here, so that here I have item name, and then maybe prices of these items. So let's say here I have cooking oil. In the box across I have its price. Now you notice I may want to distinguish these items by showing that these are headings or labels for the columns. So I may want to put these in bold, and to do that you need to highlight the items or select them. So to do this, if it was just one item I wanted to put in bold, I just click there and then click on bold. But then if I want to format all the different items at once, I simply highlight them. And to highlight, you click on the starting item and press and hold the left button of your mouse and move across all the items you want to highlight. Then click on bold. You want them to be in italics, click on this I, or if you want them underlined, just like that. Now another thing you notice is certain words are not appearing in full as I type them in the cells, like cooking oil. Some one letter is cut. So all you do is on top here where these labels for the columns, you come in between the two columns where the word is cut, and you'll notice that as you move your mouse pointer on this line here, the mouse pointer changes into those double arrows. You simply press down the left button of your mouse and then stretch the column to the right up to the length of what is appropriate for you, where the whole word can show. So one can stretch it up to there or there, but well, you want to stretch it to an appropriate size. So for me this will do. Okay, it looks pretty good like this. Now another item, you may notice that these numbers appear on the right end of the cells. So to make them appear on the center or on the left side, you simply highlight them and then you go to the alignment group here of tools. Then you can select the align text left tool or center. It will move the it will move the data items on the center or on the right. Okay, for now we'll just leave it like that. The other thing is, you may want your numbers to show decimal points, and one important thing you need to know is, when you are using Excel, you don't really need to type commas into numbers to try to demarcate between the values. For example, 200,000, I type a comma here. There's really no need for that. So all you need to do is type the number, and you can all format them at once by highlighting them. There is a comma here. We are still in the Home tab, so when you click the comma, it will automatically format your data. Another thing you can use are these two facilities. You can use them to increase decimal points or to decrease. So for example, I may only want the numbers to show one decimal place only. So when I click, you can see that it reduces the number of decimal places. And if you use this other one on the left side, it can increase the number of decimal places each time you click on these two. Another kind of formatting that we often use in spreadsheets is centering a text item. For example, we may want to give a heading to what we have here, and let's say the heading is invoice, and we don't want it to just appear in one column, but we want it to cut across columns so that it appears as a title. So for example, here, let me first delete this item here, and let's say we wanted to give this a title of invoice. As you can see, the word appears only in one column and it doesn't look like a heading. So we may want it to cut across column B and C. So what you do is highlight both columns, then in the Home tab, move to the alignment group, this one here, and then locate this item, merge and center. So when you click on this, it merges the two cells so that the word invoice is centered. We can go further and make it appear in bold. Now, a spreadsheet application can be used for various kinds of work, and one can add a long list of values. One can compute averages, and it is very easy to convert data from tabulated form into a graph. And its users, the users of a spreadsheet application, can range from personal use to business use, and you can use it for various complicated computations. And for us to see the different kinds of tasks that can be performed using Excel, we shall use a fictitious case of a Mr. John Mwansa. This gentleman always wants to record what he spends each month on his three major expenses: fuel, groceries, and transport. So I'm going to have some columns with names of months: January, February, March, April. Okay, let me put this in bold. Across here, I'm going to type the expenses: fuel, groceries, transport. And so Mr. Mwansa wants to know the monthly totals on these expenses. Okay, let's stretch this column because of the monthly totals here, which is spilling over. which appears to spill over into the next column. So I'll stretch the column. Right. So he wants to calculate monthly totals, and he also wants to know on which item had the highest spending. Okay. He would also want to compute the average. And here we're going to have count. He wants to know how many items he has listed here. In this case, it's 3 items. Okay. Right. Let's put these in bold. So for the first month, in January, he spent $350 on fuel, on groceries $850. Okay. On groceries $850. $750. In February, his record was that he spent $400 on fuel, $700 on groceries, $800 on transport. March, on fuel he had $250, on groceries $1,500, on transport $670. Then in April, $300 on fuel, $1,000 on groceries, and $500 on transport. Then at the end of the quarter of a year, the first quarter of the year, he wants to know the quarterly total. And then he has another column where he wants to put a note. If he's spending at the end, by the end of April, if it crosses, let's say, 2,000, to him that was excess spending. So he'll be putting those comments here. Then that will guide him to state by what amount he wants to reduce that spending. Alright, let us start with monthly totals. Mr. Monsa wants to calculate how much he has spent in January, the total for fuel, groceries, and transport here. Now, one important thing to know is when you're using Excel, any formula, whatever calculation you want to do, start with an equals sign. So, if I want to calculate these 3 figures, in Excel, this is the second thing you need to know. In Excel, you don't add, subtract, or whatever computations you want to do using the numbers themselves. You're going to refer to these values by the cell address in which they are found. So that if I want to add 350 plus 850 plus 750, I will type equals what is in B3, add it to what is in B4, and then add that to what is in B5. So this is B3, B4, and B5. When you are done, you hit enter on the keyboard. It gives you that value, 1950. But that's kind of a long way of doing it. We want something quicker, and so we are going to use a built-in formula. So with the formula, again, you type equals. What we are using now is the addition formula, and it works this way. You type equals, then the word sum, open bracket, type the cell address, type the first cell address from which you want to start your addition. In this case, it is B3. So we want to add numbers from B3 to B5. So 2 is going to be represented by a full colon. Now take note, this is a full colon, not a semicolon. A semicolon would look like this, and many times people make a mistake. Their formula is going to generate an error because they didn't type a full colon, they typed a semicolon. So I'll delete this and enter a full colon. So up to B5. Now you notice that as I type the range of the values I want to add here, as I type the cell addresses, there is this blue line which indicates to me the values which are going to be added. So you hit enter on the keyboard and the value will be displayed. So likewise, if I want to add the numbers in February, I'm going to type the formula again. This time equals sum. This time it is C3 to C5, close bracket, hit enter. Now can you imagine if our list of values is longer, going beyond April, way up to December? It is going to be quite cumbersome to keep typing the formula. So what you do in Excel is there is no need for you to keep on typing the formula. So as long as you've typed the first formula here, you can copy the formula across all these other columns. All you do is you make this an active cell, of course by clicking on it, and then come to the bottom right corner of this cell where you type the first formula. You will notice that the mouse pointer has changed from a thick plus to one which is dark and slim. So then you press down the left button of your mouse. Don't click, just press it down continuously, and you drag this across. Don't let go until you reach the last box where the result for sum has to be displayed. So here I am in the last column for April, and then that's when I let go of the mouse. There it is, it has automatically calculated all the values. So to emphasize on the formula again, I'll go to the formula bar. The formula which I had typed in this box, it is appearing here in the formula bar. You start with an equal to sign, type the word SUM, sum, and then state the range of cells where you want to perform the addition. So in this case we are finding the sum of values starting from B3 to B5. Now similarly, at the end of the quarter here, I would want to add this time all the fuel expenses spent from January to April. So we want to add the figure for January, for February, for March and April. So in this case I'll type equals sum, open bracket. This time I'm moving from B3 to E3, close bracket. There we are. Then I'll drag down the formula or copy it down. So I come at the bottom right corner here, press the mouse button and drag the formula down. When I reach the end where I want the values, the totals to display, I let go of the mouse, and there I have the figures, you see. So let's move on to these other items. Mr. Mansa wants to know for each month what was the highest amount out of the three expenses. So for example, in January he wants to know on what expense item did he spend the highest. Was it on fuel, on groceries, or on transport? Now of course here the figures are quite few, so I'm able to tell that 850 is the highest. But if you're going to have a longer list, it may not be that easy, and you find these formulas helpful. So for highest spent, this is the formula. You type equals, then type the abbreviation of the word maximum, which is MAX. open bracket, and specify the range of cells or cell addresses from which you want to pick the highest figure. So in this case we are comparing values starting from the one in B3 up to the one in B5. So we want to pick the maximum value from B3 to B5. It's 850. So the same formula can apply in the February column, March, April, and so on. So just like I did with the sum formula, I can as well copy down the formula for maximum across here. So those are the figures. To find the lowest, it's just the opposite. So you use minimum instead of maximum. So equals min B3 to B5. Hit enter. There we are. Copy the formula across. Alright. For average, you have to type the full word. Equals average from B3 to B5. So you can see in the row for average, numbers have different decimal points. I may want to standardize them. So you go to the home tab, then locate the number group, and then you can reduce or increase the number of decimal places. In this case, let me try to increase them to 2 decimal places. Okay, there we are. So let me also count how many entries are on my list. So the count formula is equals count, open bracket, specify the range again, B3 to B5. There we are. So there's no need for me to copy the formula across because the count will be the same for whichever column I try to copy the formula across. So there's really no need for that. So we now want to use a formula which will display good if a total here in this Q total column is below 2000, and if it is above 2000, we want the word bad to be displayed in each of these cells. So we are going to use the if formula. The if formula starts with equals, then the word if, open bracket. We're going to start with this first value here in F3. So we're going to say if what is in F3 is greater than 2000, then display bad. Otherwise, or if not greater than 2000, display good. Now I want you to notice something here in the formula. Let's look at it here in the formula bar. We start with the equal sign, if, and then here we state the condition. In the first space before the first comma we state the condition, and in this case the condition is what in F3 greater than 2000. That is the condition, that's the question we are asking, or we can put it as a statement that what is in F3 is greater than 2000. Is it true or false? If it is true, meaning if what is in F3 is greater than 2000, then display the word bad. Otherwise, we shall represent it by this second comma here. Otherwise, display good. So let's see what will be displayed when I hit enter. Okay, correct. It says good because 1300 is below 2000. So, coming to the next one here, we now want to analyze the value in F4. So, equals if what is in F4 is greater than 2000, then I put a comma there, display the word bad. Otherwise, I put a comma there, display good, close bracket. Right, so just like with the other formulas, once you enter the formula for the first item here, you simply copy down the formula. And there we are. So now, one thing I want you to notice is we've put these two words in quotation marks, the words bad and good, because when you put something in quotation marks in using the if formula, it means you want the word to be displayed exactly as it is. In other words, it's text, it's a string. But there are times where you want a result of a calculation to be displayed. In this case, for example, in the reduce column, what Mr. Mwansa wants to do is, if a note here states bad, he wants to reduce this spending, let's say by 10%. Alright, so we're going to examine each of these values again. We're going to start with what is in F3. So we're going to say equals if what is in F3 is greater than 2000, then find 10% of what is in F3. Okay, so the formula here is 10% of what is in F3, or 10% times what is in F3. Otherwise, meaning if it is not greater than 2000, just put the value of 0, meaning there's nothing we want to reduce that spending by, so you close the bracket. So you'll notice here the formula returns a value. But what would happen if I had put this formula here in quotation marks, like I did to the other formula? What you will notice is when I copy down the formula, it is displaying the formula here because I've put it in quotation marks. But that's not what we want. We want the formula to return the result. So I'll remove these quotation marks. Right. This is tabulated data. It is in form of a table. Now, when you're analyzing data in tables, sometimes it may be a little cumbersome to quickly identify items of interest. So, for example, Mr. Mwansa may want to quickly spot which month had the highest monthly total. Now, if it is in table form, he has to closely inspect by looking at the values, one value at a time. But an easier way would be to convert this data into a graph. So we had not labeled this row of months, so let's put months there. So what you do is you highlight the two items which you want to represent on the graph. In this case, we want to compare months and their corresponding monthly totals. So you simply highlight them. Now notice what is happening. The time I move to highlighting monthly totals, the highlight I had on months, it moves away. So what you do is, when you highlight the months, in order to move to the monthly totals, press the control button on your keyboard. It is labeled CTRL, and it is on the bottom left corner of your keyboard usually. So I'm going to press down. Don't just press and then let go. You continuously press it down as you move to monthly totals, then highlight them. Next, on the ribbon, move to insert, then go to the charts group. As you can see, this group has various types of charts. If we want to represent our tabulated data in form of a column chart, you simply select column, and as you can see, there is a gallery of different types of charts. I want to use this one, the 3D column chart. There it is. The graph has been automatically generated, showing months down and the monthly totals. And this has a visual appeal because you can easily notice that this is the highest bar, and it is in March, and the spending was close to 2,500, somewhere there. And you can easily convert this chart into another form. For example, I may want to see how it looks as a pie chart. So you move to design here. It's already selected. Then go to change chart type on the far left end here. There again, it takes us back to a gallery of different types of charts and how they'll look like. So in this left column here, you select what type of chart you want. So here I'll select pie. I want a 3D pie chart. I double click. There we are.